Saturday afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Can be morning in the UK. It's afternoon here in the UAE for me and Danny Guthrie. Listen, in world news, it's being touted as the easiest I'm a Celebrity challenge to date. Less than challenging trials. Viewers less than happy. Ant and Dec, have they gone soft? Send them over here is what I say to predictions. Let Kevin Campbell get a hold of them. Then they'll know what a celebrity is. Welcome to Hollywood Balls. Okay, today's episode is presented by Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code HollywoodBalls. Be the ballsiest gift giver this year at Christmas. Welcome to another Soccer Saturday with me, Geordie Pete Redding. Before we meet today's guests, let's have a look at what's coming up on the show. It's a London thing this weekend as the Capital's two's most pleasing on the eye meet, West Ham and Chelsea. Aston Villa fans will be booing Leicester instead of Jack Grealish this weekend. We look at the Women's FA Cup final and, of course, Baller of the Week and DK Hot Sauce Premier League Predictions Challenge. Before I say hello to everyone, I want to say a big shout out to last night's guest. We had the fantastic Bobby Copping, a young man whose career was cruelly halted at the age of 19 years old after one league appearance. And he now serves to help others in the same situation. If you do anything today, please visit the pages of the Bobby Copping Foundation on all social media and let's support him. A very, very brave young man. It's a welcome return to Hollywood Balls for Danny Guthrie, fresh with his Wi-Fi. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. Glad to be here this week. Particularly with Wi-Fi, we struggled last week, didn't we?
Just a little bit, but we get there. Also, it's a great return to the one and only Scriber. He's got half an hour because he's off to the game of the day. It's a welcome to John Richardson. Rico, how are you?
I'm great, thanks very much, and a big thank you to Mrs. Richardson for putting me on the show.
Big time, yeah. I can quote Mrs. Richardson as saying to her lovely husband, John, what am I, your IT manager?
What they used to.
And of course, in the house as usual, a very dapper Sir Kevin of Campbell. How are you, mate?
I'm very, very well, thanks, Pete. I'm a pheasant this morning.
You're what my grandfather would call dressed up like an Arcot Hall pheasant.
The Arcot Hall pheasant. There you go. That's the one.
I'm guessing there's some duty afterwards after the show.
Yeah, straight after the show, I'm off to the studio to do some work. So.
Good stuff.
You get me first, Pete. Look at that. You get me first.
As always, we get the exclusive. Danny, I'm going to come to you because we got cut off last week. You were in the middle of coaching. You're out here in the UAE. I've never known someone get straight into it literally from the day you arrived. But I wanted to take you back to your first full start yourself for Liverpool. Let me get this right. Champions League, Galatasaray, first full start. Quiet effort, was it?
Yeah, Galatasaray away as well. I'd come on. I think I'd come on 2 or 3 times off the bench in cup games, couple of league games, and I think we were already through at that point. I'm sure it was the last group game, so there was changes made, and yeah, there was 1 or 2 of us that started away in Galatasaray. So it didn't have the usual 100% spice that I guess it would, but it was enough for a debut. Yeah.
Kev, you can concur with.
Dan? Was it at the Ali Sami Yen?
It was the. I'm sure it was the Aztec where they played the final a few years later.
Right.
So it was the
new stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, new stadium.
But it was tasty.
Lively. Even if there's nothing going, if there's nothing riding on it, it's lively.
Kev, it was a dead rubber, really. I don't think they could get through. I think we were through. So to see flares, flags, invaders, the lot, it was still tasty, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's lively.
I can concur with that, just in the media side, because been there a few times, and sadly the media section is below one of the stands where a lot of the Galatasaray fans are, and things are thrown and liquid is deposited on you. Well, you can imagine what that is. So it's not too pleasant.
Fanta Rico. Listen, you've been a busy man as well. As I say, you've got games to go to and attend to. It is Saturday after all, Soccer Saturday. I wanted you to tell us about this. I'm intrigued. I've listened to a couple of episodes. It's absolutely fantastic. Tell us about the Old Spice Boys. Yeah,
it's a podcast. It's sort of glory days. Sort of, we have Bruce Springsteen's music to start it with glory days.
Of course,
it was always a good start. And we've been talking to people like Gary Lineker, Ron Atkinson this week. Big Ron was fantastic. We've got Howard Wilkinson coming on. We've had lots of Harry Redknapp started it off. Harry was fantastic, and it's just a case of going back in time, trying to relax and coming up with some lovely anecdotes and bringing it up to date.
Fantastic. My only Ron Atkinson story, I was invited to watch the Merseyside derby, and Ron was a guest on holiday in Dubai, and I was lucky enough, he said, "Can you sit down next to me?" So I'm sat next to Big Ron just before the kick-off, Liverpool and Everton, and I lean over and I whisper to him and I say, "Here, Ron, who do you fancy today?" And he leans over and he says, "You know what, son?" He says, "I hope they both get beat." That was
He's
Big
got a
Ron.
lot of love for Merseyside.
He has indeed. Kev, another big derby game today. Let's get stuck straight into it. West Ham and Chelsea, cracking game in store there. And West Ham, they, for all they're playing well and everyone's marvelling at their season, they need a result, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. That's going to be another lively occasion, both on and off the pitch. There's going to be about 5 helicopters for that one in London. Look, I just think Chelsea have been rolling. They obviously didn't get the result they needed against Manchester United. Got a good win in the week, etc. So I think the onus is on West Ham because West Ham are at home. But you know what Chelsea are going for? Chelsea are going for the title, and this is a game that Chelsea have to win. So, it's going to be tough because West Ham are a decent side. But I think, Chelsea just might shade it.
Yeah, I agree. Got to give a quick shout out to the Panda podcast. Nice to have you on board, guys. Lovely to see you doing a cracking job. We're going to get on to NUFC, but Danny, a side that you had, the fans loved it when you played. You were a very popular player there. Look, when I ask people about the side that you played in, and I mean, you were signed by Kevin Keegan, but Newcastle at that time, they had more gaffers than Real Madrid. There were some top players in that side, wasn't there? Why didn't it gel?
I really, do you know what? I really don't think it matters. Once you're losing games and you're on a run, you sort of, I guess, after Christmas, you get to February, March. I think you always think we'll be all right, we'll win, and you start sleepwalking into relegation. And it really didn't matter what personnel we had. We were just lacking confidence, lacking a bit of cohesion between the group. Like you said, there was managers coming in. There was, I don't know, we must have had 5 that year easily. And it was just one thing after another. I mean, obviously that year there was a lot of protests once Kevin had left. And it was just a disaster. I mean, I think I really think the biggest player we missed that year was Viduka. We missed him for most of the season, and he came back for the run-in, wasn't really fit. He was obviously one of them players, the shape of him, if he was out for a long time, he was going to come back heavy, and he just he never really got going for us. And even down to the last game, we still had a chance, and all we needed was a point away at Villa, and it's something you can't explain, I mean, no matter how many teams, formations, players we put out there, it was just inevitable we were going to go down.
The fans never really took to Michael Owen. Is it safe to say that the feeling was mutual?
I don't know. Only he could answer that. I mean, he wasn't a bad egg, or he wasn't. He was a superstar when he was younger. Again, I think he suffered with injuries while he was at Newcastle. When I arrived, he was sort of transitioning at that point from a number 9 who ran in behind, and he was sort of changing his game to like a 10 and it just didn't suit the way what we were doing at the time, and it wasn't really his skill set either. He didn't really have that skill set in his locker, so he was sort of transitioning from the injuries, and and I mean, obviously, he went on to win the league at Man United the year after, so
as you do,
it worked out well for him.
It just does sound, though, Danny, like it was all about timing and, players' careers at the wrong time, and as you said, sleepwalking into relegation. John, let's talk books. And in a sad past 7 days, obviously, we saw the 10th anniversary of Gary Speed, his death, something I know that hits you hard. Tell us about the book. Tell us a little bit about Unspoken.
Yeah, well, originally I was going to do the autobiography with Gary. We did 2 or 3 chapters, and then he was Sheffield United manager at the time, and he said, "Look, I haven't done enough. Can we leave it, until I've actually achieved something?" Typical modesty of the man. And I said, "It's up to you. It's your book. I'm just the sort of ghostwriter." Anyway, sadly, after his death, I approached Louise, a few years later, his wife, and said, "Look, I'd like to do a book, but only do it with you. I want to speak to people, about Gary, anecdotes about him, blah, 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 people he played with, managers, etc., etc. But it won't be a book until you tell your story." And she eventually agreed. This was about 4 years ago. And it was very emotional, as you can imagine. I went round to the house 3 or 4 times, and with tears and everything. But we managed to get it done. And then I spoke to other people, Kevin Ratcliffe, all people that knew him. And we managed to get a book out. But it was very poignant, because I said to Louise, "Can you try and get some photographs, family photographs?" And which he did. And amongst these photographs was a letter that he wrote to Louise when he was 17, 18. He was at Leeds as an apprentice. And they used to write to each other. They were at school. It was a love job from school, And one of those letters which she found was, "I feel this, I feel depressed, I feel awful." It was like a suicide note. And at the time, you sort of brush it aside. You're 17, you're just having a bit of a mood. But it was a little bit of an insight into what later happened. And when she started to analyse things, she said, well, he used to take himself off into his room for hours on end, sometimes playing his guitar. And it was like to get away from everything. But, nobody knew the intensity, what was happening inside his head.
No, absolutely dreadful. And, again, just touching on last night's show, we had young Bobby Copping on, who's at Peterborough now. Thankfully, Peterborough came forward as a club, and they gave young Bobby a job after all of those years of playing in the academy at Norwich. He was actually looking at a move to Sunderland. Came back to Peterborough, and after one game, this head injury that caused him to retire. But the club stepped in, and he said, at that time, he was 18 years old. He literally locked himself in his room, and that was it. Didn't speak to anyone until the club came forward and said, "Why don't you come in and we'll find you a job?" So I think that times are changing, John.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we're now aware of mental illness, aren't we? Whereas like 10 years ago, you brush it aside. Oh, get a grip of yourself. What's the matter with you? You've got all this money, nothing can be wrong with you. But now we've got an insight into things. And, both Kevin and Danny will know how hard it must be to when you finish your playing career. You've got to try and do something else. And if that avenue isn't open to you, then there could be problems, couldn't there?
Yeah, indeed. Kev, I wanted to come up to you. I wanted to touch on, we've had a sort of action-packed week of football before we even get into what's happening this weekend. None more so than with your beloved Arsenal. What a strange game that was. A game that I thought was actually there for the taking for the Gunners.
It was there for the taking. just difficult sometimes. Look, once you go a goal ahead, and this United side have struggled at Old Trafford, really at times. They put Ronaldo in, a smart in Ronaldo who wants to prove something, and United are going to respond. So by the time it gets to 2 each, you're thinking it could go either way. And there was a couple of penalty incidents. One where Harry Maguire's got hold of Tomiyasu. You could have argued that was a stonewall penalty, but the tackle on Fred was a penalty, and Ronaldo stuck it away. End up losing the game 3-0, and there's a little bit of frustration there, Pete, because you don't get many chances to beat Manchester United at Old Trafford, and that was one that went missing.
Bizarre goal as well, wasn't it? It's been touted along with Darren Bent's beach ball.
Yeah, the first goal was crazy. I mean, Fred got through some work in that game, didn't he? I mean, he even done his own goalkeeper. So, it was crazy. It was crazy. But, VAR, I don't like VAR, but the right decision was made and the goal was given in that instance.
Danny, the red juggernaut, Liverpool, that just keeps going on. It doesn't, people were saying the only real hope Everton had was the fact that it was going to be a local derby, a home atmosphere. The fact that it's a bit poisonous at Everton as well probably played into Liverpool's hand, and they ran out easy winners in the end, didn't they?
Yeah, they're Liverpool are frightening at the minute. I mean, all over the pitch. It was a bit of a mismatch, really, for a derby. I mean, it never really... I think Liverpool started brilliantly, and you could tell in the first few minutes they were moving the ball really well. And like you said, it's a difficult one at Everton, I think, this year. I think any excuse or any reason the fans are gonna turn, particularly at home. So I can imagine it wasn't very pleasant for the players, but obviously particularly Benitez as well.
You can imagine it's just not when you look at the fixture list and say what could be worse at the moment. A local derby at home against Liverpool, all the best. John, in typical Newcastle fashion, they don't do things by half against Norwich. Red card after 9 minutes. That was welcome, wasn't it?
Yeah, the television got a right boot after 9 minutes, I tell you. You're nervous as hell, aren't you, waiting for this? You know it's going to be hard anyway, but you fancy, let's face it, we fancied 3 points, didn't we, the first 3 points. After 9 minutes, I mean, how ridiculous was it? I mean, the boys, okay, it's emotional. You do things at the spur of the moment, but I suppose it's easy for me to sit there saying he shouldn't have done it. But, the fact was Newcastle were down to 10 men. And you settle for a point straight away. But then when we get the penalty and score it, just about, you're then hanging on. And then Pookie comes up with a worldie, doesn't he? And you feel
he loves playing against us, as does everybody else. But I mean, him in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic goal. But what it did do, I think, it did give Newcastle a bit of a psychological lift. It proves that Eddie Howe's got them galvanised, if you like. There seems to be a better spirit there. I'm not going to knock Steve Bruce, but it does appear to be a different ball game at the moment, and hopefully that will continue against Burnley.
Danny, I mean, you've been in that position before. You played at St James's Park, hanging on. I mean, as a fan, it's inevitable. I'm sitting at home waiting for it, just waiting, shouting at the screen. So you've got the fans in the stadium shouting at you. Do you sense it as well as a player when you were at St James's?
Oh yeah, it's a very emotional crowd at St James's, so you do feel the emotions of the supporters. I mean, they are a great set of support. I mean, being 1-0 up in that position, I thought they were brilliant, the fans, and I think that's when you can really say Newcastle fans are excellent. I mean, they nearly carried them over the line, but then obviously on both sides. I mean, if that game would have been 0-0, 11 against 11 after 30 minutes, and there's a backward pass, then you feel the other side of the emotions as well. So, but in that situation, they are brilliant, the Newcastle fans.
Staying with fans, Kev, why were the media surprised that Jack Grealish got the treatment when he went back to Villa? It's like it's a knocking bet that's going to happen, isn't it? And there was outrage among them. Oh, he served them so well, and it's fans, isn't it?
Listen, it's fairy tale with the media, isn't it? They want it all to be nice and fluffy.
Outrage.
No chance. Listen, the Aston Villa fans, I feel really hurt by Jack Grealish. Fair enough, that was organised. It was in his contract. But they were looking at building something, weren't they? And he was the key component. He was the captain. And as far as fans are concerned, he jumped ship. That's what they see. You jump ship. So, give him plenty, Villa. That's all right. No problem. He walks away with 3 points in his back pocket, and they could give him plenty of stick. No love lost. Happy days.
He's got enough on his plate without the fans on his back as well. He's got his WhatsApps going nuts. He's not playing for City, so everyone. Jack Grealish back in the news again. I suppose that's what happens. John, I'm wary that we're running down, so I wanted to ask you. Now, you've been on our show. You've been on our show many times, but I've never asked you this question.
Anybody else?
Brilliant. I wanted to pose you this question, and it's a toughie. You've written books on Gaza and Sir Alex. I've got to ask you, out of the two, which was the most challenging?
Probably Sir Alex, really, because whereas most people were prepared to talk about Gaza, I always got the sort of because it's called Under the Hairdryer, and it's about people getting bollockins, which I've had a few myself, obviously. And there was that wariness. I remember, I get on very well with Mark Hughes, and I said to Sparky, he said, "Look, I'm doing this book, blah blah blah." Oh, does the gaffer know? The gaffer? Well, I don't have to involve him. He probably does know, and I'll probably get the hairdryer after the book anyway. He said, "Oh, I don't know whether I should do it." I said, "Look, it's anecdotes." And then there was Jim McGregor, the physio. Jim was, what if I bump into him and he reads it? I said, well, and all Jim was talking about, and it was very good. He said that he was the one who made Fergie chew gum, because he used to go, well, he went berserk anyway, didn't he? But he used to be even worse. And Jim thought, well, calm down, have some chewing gum during the games. Oh, what do you think he'll say if he reads that? Oh. It's not exactly secrets, is it? So the Fergie book was hard to do, but managed to get it over the line.
Gaza's came with a few challenges as well, didn't it?
Yeah, but the difference with the Gaza book was, I mean, as you know, as his ghostwriter that's got grey hair, most people start laughing about Gaza. They were the funny stories, so it was more light-hearted. So they prepared to talk. Whereas with Fergie, anyway, they're both done.
It's
the fear factor, Richo.
Absolutely, Kev, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just for those that are just joining us, tell us the first time you met Gaza. What he said to you, John.
Well, I was a young reporter on the Newcastle Journal, which most people know, the morning paper up there, and Newcastle were involved in that run in the FA Youth Cup. But they eventually won it, didn't they? Got to the final, beat Watford. And Colin Suggett was the U team manager, and I think they got to the quarter-final stage. And I said to him, "Look, I'd like to do a piece on the U team." He said, "Who can I speak to?" He says, "Well, our best player is probably a lad called Paul Gascoigne." I said, "I'll set it up for you." Oh, great! So met him in the old car park at Benwell. The old training ground, which needed fumigating.
Probably more modern than the one we've got now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So there he is, with his cheeky face and everything. I said, "I'm John Richardson from Newcastle Journal. Paul, I'd like to do an interview with you." "How much you paying me, man?" "How much you paying me?" I don't pay Kevin Keegan, but whatever. "What do you mean, how much?" He said, "How much are you going to pay me?" And then he started laughing. He said, I'm only joking. And, my mum reads the Newcastle Journal, so I'll do it with you. And that was the start of our relationship, which went
a beautiful relationship.
All the way through, to Spurs, to Lazio, to Rangers. So I did his column for about 10 years, which that was a bit of an effort.
I bet you were. I was going to say, I bet you were short of material for that.
I was short of eyebrows at times.
Amazing. Listen, Danny, later today at St James's Park, we've got the Newcastle United podcast with Arab News, and Kev was a guest on it last week. We spoke to Stephen Taylor this week, and we just keep to be saying the same thing. But today really is the must-win, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They all are. Again, I'll go back. Every game you look at when you're in this position just looks difficult. I mean, if you were mid-table and you had Burnley at home, you would be looking forward to it. But because of the circumstance, you look at it and think, oh, Burnley, tough, rugged, difficult game. But, sooner or later, you've got to win a game. And I think they would have won the other day, but obviously silly decision early on across the team. But again, they're all must win at the moment for Newcastle.
Kev, we've just said there's a guy that will know exactly what to do. Two guys, including the gaffer himself, Sean Dyche, but in his arsenal there is one Steve Stone, who will know exactly what to do at St James's Park today to silence that crowd that Danny was on about.
100%. Geordie Stone, he's back in the northeast. He's worked on the staff at Newcastle. He knows the heartbeat of the crowd. That's for sure.
Yep.
And they are going to make it as difficult as possible for Newcastle today. St. Maximum, he better have the cricket pads on. I'm telling you, because they're going to be going all out to stop him, making sure, because if he doesn't play, Newcastle will struggle.
And he hasn't been the last couple of games, Kev. He's due a good game, and also in Newcastle's favour is a Burnley. He's got a good record against them as well, so that we'll be hoping that he steps up to the mark. John, just tell us briefly before you pop off where you're off to, and which game are you going to be covering?
Oh, it's the big one. It's Blackburn against Preston. Real Lancashire hot pot.
That's a big game, that.
To be fair, Blackburn are fourth in the Championship at the moment, and there's, as you know, they're owned by the Venkis, and the Indian company, and for once there's no Venkis out. Everybody seems to be united at the moment, and Tony Mowbray, talking to Kev before, I mean, he's an all-star manager. Done the hard yards, hasn't he? He's actually the Championship's longest-serving manager. They're almost 5 years. Yeah. I mean, so I'm pleased for him. Saw Preston last week against Fulham. And they're going to be mid-table, so you'd fancy Blackburn.
I was going to put you on the spot. Give us a result.
I think Blackburn will win.
Great stuff.
And I think Newcastle will beat Burnley. There you go.
There you go. Everyone knows who to turn to if that doesn't happen. I'll give his email out at the end of the show when he's not here. John, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. We'll see you soon. Take care and enjoy the game.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Great stuff. There he is, Rico, top journalist, and some of the Gaza stories. It's worth getting a hold of those books just to read about Gaza. Absolutely incredible. Kev, what's your take on? I mean, there's some absolutely massive games. We've touched on West Ham and Chelsea, but when I was talking midweek, there's other teams to be looked at in this battle down at the bottom as well. And unfortunately, you look at Watford and Everton are in there as well. They're on a real slide, aren't they? Your old club.
Yeah, it's look. The Premier League hasn't caught fire for quite a few teams down the bottom, Pete. And any team who goes on a bit of a slide, especially around this time going into Christmas, can find themselves in the mire down at the bottom. One win makes a massive difference, Pete. 3 points makes a massive difference. Problem with a lot of these teams when they don't win, a point is no good to them because it absolutely keeps them in the problems. So they need a win.
I'll put it to you to try and put my mind and Newcastle United fans at rest is that the gap is widening, but it's still doable. There is that record that stands that no club without a win thus far has ever done it. But throw into the mix that the gap isn't that large currently, and there is the small matter of a transfer pot in January. Newcastle could still do it, couldn't they?
You will. Newcastle will stay up, in my eyes. That January window, the number one thing Newcastle have to do, and I'm sure Danny will probably agree, is sort that defence out.
Yeah.
You sort that defence out, Newcastle are going to be fine. Because you can see too many silly goals. Getting a player sent off after 9 minutes and he's a centre back is not conducive to winning games. It's crazy.
Yeah. Danny, I wanted to ask you as well, probably a position that you filled as well. And when I look at Newcastle's midfield in the last couple of games, and from what I'm hearing, it's going to start today, I just feel a bit more comfortable with someone sat in front of that back four who is not necessarily your Shelvies or your Willocks, which are attacking minded, but just someone to do that, cleaning up at the back and just lay the ball off and marshal that back four. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, like Kevin said, the centre back area needs addressing majorly, but particularly as well, probably a CDM, like you said, to give a bit more protection. I don't think they're particularly blessed in that area either. From that point on in the team, you'd think it's not a bad team. They've got pace, they've got goals, they've got flair. It's just they're going to shoot themselves in the foot if they don't address that centre back area and possibly CDM, because we're all hoping for these glamorous signings this window coming up, but it's going to have to be a centre back or at least one.
Yeah.
And that might not be such a glamorous area to sign someone unless you're signing a Van Dijk or someone like that, but it's what's going to keep Newcastle up, because it's killing them.
Yeah, they need functional players. Yeah, they need functional. And as Danny's mentioned, it's the spine of the team, Pete. Centre half, centre midfield. If you haven't got a good defensive midfielder, you're in trouble in the Premier League.
Massive, yeah.
You are in trouble.
And Kev, all right, we laughed and joked about it over WhatsApp, but literally it is the case that anytime a team comes forward against Newcastle, I can see them scoring.
Yeah. It's they're too open, Pete, and having that having the proper centre backs obviously helps. But that screen that you mentioned, having that CDM in there, that's just the added bit of protection that centre halves need to do their job. That's the way football's gone, and you get a good one, you get a centre half or two, and you get a CDM. Newcastle are in business.
I'm hearing today that they're going to be 3 at the back with 2 wing backs, so 3 centre halves. So we'll see what that brings if my HP source is correct. Okay, Christmas is nearly upon us, and we looked last week at the best and worst of Christmas presents, Kev, the old West Ham aftershave, I think we mentioned. My question for Danny is, now I'm putting you on the spot, Guthers here, by the way, but I've heard a rumour that way back in the past, may I add, that there was a tactical red or yellow card for players just approaching Christmas. Is that a myth, or is it the case?
I don't know. I've never known anyone do it. It is a myth in football. Christmas one, yeah. I've seen cup games. I've seen them ones. Yeah. I've seen a few late challenges to miss a cup game in the week, yeah. Or even you see some players get the 5th yellow card as well. I've seen that tactical. You know what? I do remember because I played with Czech Tiote, bless him, and he was a sucker for a yellow card. I mean, I remember Alan Pardew actually started trying to plan when we could get him a yellow card, because he'd get 10 before the cut-off. So he was talking about CDMs. I mean, if Newcastle had him now, so he was a really important player for us at the time, and we were sort of planning when to play him and when not to play him. Yeah.
I remember Stoney saying that they would just stand. That they were going to ask the referee and Tiote to meet at 5-3 and just give him a yellow card there and get it done with, and then he could just crack on with the game.
Yeah, he was. I used to look. I've never seen a player train as well as Czech. Literally every day was a game for him. He touched you and it hurt. He was made of steel. But yeah,
amazing.
If Newcastle could sign anyone like that in the window, perfect.
Kev, as well, for you as a former player as well, fans take this for granted, but Christmas Day was just another day for you players. It was training because there's always a game on Boxing Day. But for the fans, I know for me personally, Boxing Day was always the fixture I look forward to as a fan. Great. But for you guys, you were having to train on Christmas morning, weren't you?
Yeah, it depended. It's funny, when I was at Arsenal, Pete, because Boxing Day, our games sometimes were the early kickoff was 12:30. So what we done, we didn't train until the evening. So you could have your day at home, and you're getting your spanners and your screwdrivers out to put toys together, and then before you know it, you got your gear and you're having to go to Highbury. We trained at Highbury today, then we'd obviously be in a hotel tonight, and then we'd be playing back at Highbury in the morning. So, then you go to Everton. It was in for 10, out for 11. Start at 10 o'clock, you'll be out of the training ground for 11. So, you kind of got the early bit. You train and come back, and then you're playing Boxing Day. So it is just a normal day, but it's not, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was as well. Being a Newcastle fan, Danny, something you'll be used to is the amount of travel that we had to do as players and fans. I remember one season scouring the fixture list for New Year's Day. Another favourite of mine, always get into town with the boys and have a great New Year's Day. Plymouth away, all the best. Leave it on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. I remember we won I'm sure we officially won the championship when we were down at Plymouth, and we had to, we had to travel back on the bus because of the ash cloud.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant stuff. Staying with the festive period, make sure you hurry along to manscaped.com, our partner. You'll get your 20% off and free shipping with the code Hollywood Balls. Whether it's for your brother, dad, partner, get them something they're going to actually use this Christmas. Manscaped.com. There you go. Kev knows. Great stuff. Got to give some big shout outs. Thomason's in the house. Now, Thomason has been messaging me this week saying he's got a problem. He's been on to Manscaped and he can't get the gear that he wants. I've written to them for you, Thomason, and we will wait for the information for you, and I'll get back to you, mate. So don't worry. We will sort you out. Okay, Kev, we're going to come to you because it's Baller of the Week time, a hero in the football world from the last 7 days. Surely it can't be Ronaldo because he injured himself scoring against your lot, so he's out the picture. Two great goals. Who's your baller?
Look, I'm going to go for a tried and tested name, Pete, because for anyone to win the Ballon d'Or 7 times is absolutely ridiculous. And some people say he's the best player to ever play. It's an argument that you can win, you can't lose by saying superlatives about this guy. Lionel Messi's been unbelievable. I covered him when he was at Barcelona for that last year. And believe you me, if ever there's a one-man team, it was him. He was that player at Barcelona. Whenever he was out of the team, they never done anything. As soon as he gets back in the team, everything started to click. So, Ball of the Week is Lionel Messi for his 7th Ballon d'Or.
Good shout. And again, like you say, Kev, quite rightly, you're never going to win with all that. People, clamouring for a certain other player as well. But it's all down to opinions, which is what makes it our game. Danny, have you got anyone that stood out for us over the last 7 days?
Oh, on the spot. I can't. I don't. I just echo what Kevin said really about Messi. I mean, we've run out of things to say about him. I obviously, in my generation and having watched football of years gone by, he would have to be the best player ever for me. And yeah, I'd love to see it go right for him at PSG. I mean, it's a bit rocky at the moment, but I just love him just to produce, just to shut the critics up really of this myth that he could only do it in one country, which is ridiculous.
Maybe did he fancy a CDM role at St James's?
I'm sure he'd be the best player if he did. Yeah.
Be brilliant stuff. Okay, fast approaching the end of the show. It's been an absolute blast. It always does when you're having fun. So many of you along as well. Thanks so much to all our TFA crowd. But it is that time. Danny, you managed to get out of it last week, but not this week. It is time for the DK Hot Sauce Challenge. I've got to say congratulations to Darren Descendry in Dubai, who wins. He wins the hot sauce. He won the challenge last week, Kev. And I'll tell you what, I was close.
Pete, don't give me none of that nonsense. Oh. You were close. You hit the post twice and you lost. Get out of it, Darren. Done.
Two correct scores. And I think I'm going to blame Spurs, because if their game had gone on, I'm sure I would have had that right score and probably beat Barry Ashworth's record score as well. If. Anyway, on to today. Again, thanks to everyone for participating. It's brilliant. We've got Samantha Shepherd's in, Sue J's in, Scotty Shepherd, Lee Cosgrove, George. Our George, TFA George, is texted in. We've got his scores here as well. So we'll have George along for the ride today. Danny Kwang is in, as well as Gary Baker and Martin Craig. Can't physically fit you all into them, but we've got all of your scores. Guest first. Danny, give us a score for West Ham Chelsea.
I will go 2-0 Chelsea.
2-0 to Chelsea. Super Kev?
I've got 2-1 Chelsea.
I've got 2-0 to Chelsea. Samantha's got 1-0 to Chelsea. Sujay's got 3-1. Scotty's got 2-1. Lee Cosgrove, Man United fan, has got West Ham 3, Chelsea 2. And our George has got 2-0 to Chelsea. Okay, Danny, we've got Wolves Liverpool.
Oh, I will go 3-0 Liverpool.
3-0 to Liverpool. Kev?
I've got the same, 3-0.
And making it a hat-trick is me. I've got the same as well. Samantha's gone 3-1. Sujay's gone to Liverpool, as has Sujay, but 2-1. Scotty's taken a draw. Wolves 1, Liverpool 1. Lee Cosgrove's taken the same, 1-1 draw. And George has taken 3-1 to Liverpool. Okay, FA Cup, big shout out to our good mate on Hollywood Balls, Adrian Bevington from Hartlepool, playing today in the FA Cup. They're away at Lincoln, Danny, so it's Lincoln Hartlepool in the Cup. Tough one.
Yeah. Lincoln. 2-1 Lincoln.
2-1 to Lincoln is a popular choice. Super Kev?
I've got the same 2-1 Lincoln.
It is a popular choice. I've gone 1-0 to the Pools. And
Get out, 1-0.
What are you going to do? You'd never watch the show again or come on as a guest. Come on, Hartlepool. I'm sure Jeff Stelling will agree with me as well. Samantha's got 2-0 Lincoln. Sujay's got 1-0 Lincoln. Scotty's got 2-1 to Lincoln. Lee's gone 3-1 Lincoln. George has gone 2-1 to Lincoln. Okay, Spurs Norwich, Danny.
2-0 Spurs.
2-0 to Spurs. Okay, Kev.
I've got 1-1.
Unbelievable.
Well, I did change it. Listen, because they won in the week, Spurs won in the week, I was going 1-0 Norwich, but they won in the week, so I'm going to go 1 each.
Amazing. Are you watching, George? Okay, I've gone 2-0 to Spurs. Samantha's gone 3-0. Sujay's gone 1-1. Scotty's got 3-0 Spurs. Lee Cosgrove's got 3-1 Spurs. George has gone 2-0 to his beloved Lily Whites. Okay, last game of the day. It's the cup final this weekend for the ladies. Arsenal-Chelsea, cracking game, Danny.
Yeah, Chelsea are strong though. I'll go 3-0 Chelsea.
Kev?
2-1 Arsenal.
2-1 to the Arsenal. I've gone 2-1 to Chelsea, as has Samantha. Sujay's gone with Super Kev, 2-1 to the Arsenal. Scotty's gone 3-2 Chelsea. Lee's gone 3-1 Chelsea. And George has gone 3-2 Chelsea. Brilliant. We'll keep everyone updated to that. Danny, it's been brilliant having you along. Just to finish up, how's things going? Are you enjoying the lovely weather we're having in the UAE?
I am. I've bloody picked up a bit of a head cold from the AC. I think I'm still acclimatising to that. Not had a AC for a
He's
long
got
time.
the newbies Dubai cold.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, like we were discussing earlier about, coming out of football and just wanting to dive in head first into something, stay busy, and like you said, not give yourself any time to miss football or reminisce so much about it and get sad. So it was literally an opportunity to come up and snatched it because I didn't want to be out of the game or be out of touch with the game for very long.
And also, what I must add is for these youngsters and people that are getting the benefit, Kev, of the likes of Danny here in the UAE. It's a fantastic opportunity for them, isn't it?
Pete, it's incredible. Danny's played at the highest level. Danny's been in the dressing room. He's played with the managers. He's played with the top players. The fact of the matter is, what Danny's going to do, Danny's going to transfer some of that knowledge to these young players in a hope that they can improve and maybe get there one day. It's a great opportunity for them. Well done, Danny.
Cheers,
it's an absolutely massive opportunity for all concerned. When I was little, Kev, we were shipped off to Benwell, and we were lucky enough. Arthur Cox took a class, but it was literally 200 kids, and it was fascinating. You hung on his every word. So kids today have got a seriously good opportunity, as you say, Kev, from the people like Danny who've played at the highest level. There's your last code. Kev, your train's calling. Brilliant to see you as well. We'll see everyone again next week. Thanks to my guests. Thanks to you all on Hollywood Balls Soccer Saturday.